Hi, in this video I'm going to show you what's new in the upcoming IBM Copy Services Manager 6.2.8 release. Alright, first I'm going to go over a product overview and then I'll talk about what's new. So for those that don't know about CSM, what are we? Well, we're a one-stop shop for replication needs on IBM storage. We're easy to install, set up, and manage. We can be up in time, up and running in no time managing your replication environment. So we provide automation for advanced copy services. We're single point across your entire environment, so you can manage your DS8000 storage along with your Spectrum Virtualize or Spectrum Accelerate storage. We're designed to scale to thousands of relationships, and we do RPO, history monitoring, etc. In addition, we install on all the available platforms, mostly Windows, Linux, AX. We even have a new Linux PPC for Little Indian. And if you don't want to manage an external server, we are pre-installed on the DS8000 HMC as well. So that's an option for some users. We have disaster recovery and high availability. So we work with managing ZOS Hyperswap, as well as supporting the PowerHA type Hyperswap solutions as well, including the new A9000 Hyperswap and multi-target Hyperswap. We have practice sessions, so we allow you to practice the way you would recover. So in those practice sessions, you can flash, do your practicing while it's still maintaining DR capabilities. And then last, we have some data protection type things where we have warning prompts, prevent you from issuing the replication going in the wrong direction. We have user roles that allow you to specify who can do what in the environment. Site awareness, so you can label each of your storage systems in a location as well as your sessions. And we have event and threshold alerts. As you can see, CSM, if you're managing replication, particularly in IBM storage, it'll save you a lot of time, money, effort, etc. All right, so let's go into what's new. So here's a quick overview, screenshot slide of all the new features of 6.2.8. It is a feature-packed release. We got in a lot of features into this release, particularly some RFEs that customers have voted for and they rose to the very top. And so we try to get those in, and we work very agile-like and reprioritize per release and really per sprint to try to get the customers what they want. All right, so what's the first one I'm talking about? First one is CSM messages written to the ZOS syslog. So this was the RFE 138173. It got a lot of votes. Really, what main piece of it was that customers wanted a way to be able to automate from their their syslog, which they already do today. But today CSM doesn't post any of its messages. So anytime you issue a session and it fails, you don't see that in the ZOS syslog. You can find it in the CSM console or its messages, but not the ZOS syslog, where customers already have a lot of automation based off of. And so what we've done is, if you're running CSM on a ZOS system, and I'll make note of that this is only for customers that do run CSM on ZOS, we are able to push our messages to the ZOS syslog. So first note is it's only the IWN-R messages. So we have a set of messages, some of the IWN-H and some IWN-G, but IWN-R are the ones that are related to your sessions. So if you start a session, stop a session, recover, flash, whatever you're doing to a session, it's going to produce an IWN-R message. And that's what we're going to be logging in the syslog. We felt that those were the majority of what you'd be looking for. We didn't want to overrun the syslog with some unnecessary messages. The second thing I want to note is that it's not enabled by default. So if you install in CSM on Z, it's not going to automatically write to the syslog. We did that on purpose so that, again, you wouldn't all of a sudden start seeing a ton of CSM messages and wonder what's going on. So if you want this, what you'll have to do is go into the server properties, which can be accessed now through the CSM GUI. And add the following property, which is com.ibm.csm.zu console.logging. The default is none. However, again, that you'll have to add this. It won't be in the property file most likely. But you can have two other choices. You can set it to all, which will log all I, W, and E messages, so all info, warning, and error messages to the syslog. Or you can choose to specify error, which will only issue the warning and error messages. All right, so the other thing I want to, maybe that's a lot, maybe that's, a lot of messages still, and so there's some multiple ways we can filter. So by default, we don't include the children messages. So for example, if you issue a start command and it fails, we produce an overall failure message, but then we have what we call children messages for each of the individual pairs. So it's highly likely that a lot of those pairs may have the same message. Maybe paths couldn't be established. You'd get a 0fox52 error. So you'd get a 0fox52 error in children messages for every pair that's in the session. So to prevent that, from overrunning again your syslog, depending on the number of volumes in your session, we have disabled the children messages by default. So if you do need those, we figured that the majority of what you're going to be basing any kind of automation off of would be the main message. So if you did in fact issue a start and it failed, or issued a flash and it failed, you'd pick that up from the main parent message, and then you could go debug and go find the children messages later on. But so this is will show you, if you do want to include the children messages, say there is a specific child message that will give you more details that you want to automate off of, you can include this com IBM CSMZ console login.include children and set it to true. So you would just add that new property. All right. So the other one is you can also, if you're getting a particular message and it's a lot of a particular message, you can now also add a property that will exclude those particular messages. So it's this last one, zconsole logging.exclude messages, and then you can specify the message you want. So it could be IDMBN R1001I message, comma, and then just keep going with whichever messages you want. Now we'll state, this is, it would be cumbersome to include a lot of messages, so hopefully you can manage the filtering based off the above properties instead. But this is an option in case there's a particular message that just flood in your console and you need to get rid of it. You don't use it, you don't need it. All right, so hopefully this had a lot of votes. Hopefully this will help a lot of customers out. All right, the next one is an RFE 134640. What happened was the customer got an error message, a 2320W message, which specified that there was a hardware error between two logical subsystems two LSSs when trying to establish pathing. But because CSM kind of hides the SSID, they never knew that there was the issue. The main issue was that there was a SSID mismatch. And so what they asked was for us to include the SSID in that message. So this is a very quick, easy feature that we put in, so that for that 2320W, you not only see the logical subsystem, but you'll see the SSID for that subsystem. So hopefully this will allow you to see right away if you have a mismatch. Okay, the next few features are actually based off the same RFE. That's RFE 132997. And what this one was is they basically wanted a way, because CSM in the past and last few releases has added the ability to kind of manage multiple sessions, so you can manage different volumes differently, but include them in a broader big session, either a hyperswap session together, so you can have a MGM and a MM session, both with their MM pairs in the same hyperswap session in the sysplex, or for global mirror, if you need to have more than one set of global mirror volumes within the same LSS, you can actually manage them separately in CSM through separate CSM sessions, but by specifying the same master session ID in the user-defined consistency group, we will actually in CSM create the same master on the hardware and manage them through that same master. for global mirror. And so because of this, because there's a lot of sharing going on, there's some requests about improving the ways we can view that data. So this first one I want to talk about is in the View Volumes panel. Now you can actually, we've overhauled the panel, the table itself. So now you can, filter it. You can move columns. You can sort. You can do all that stuff. Before it was a very generic table that only held the base data of the username, volume, type, etc. Now you can manipulate it, and those manipulations will hold and persist across for that same user across different browser logins on that same browser in the same system. So this hopefully adds a little bit of more, user and customizing to this table. But in addition, what we've added is a new column that allows you to actually see what sessions the volume is as well. So this helps you to see that, on a given LSS, maybe I'm actually using multiple sessions, etc. So let's go look at it directly. So I'm going to go under Storage Systems. I'm going to pick a storage system and say View Volumes. This gets me my View Volumes panel. And now let's just go perform a query for all volumes. So now you'll see that here's my user-defined name, my full name. I can, hide the username if I wanted to. I could bring it back, etc. That all persists. I could sort on the full name, so I'm getting by LSS, etc. But here's that main sessions column that I talked about. So now I have this. Well, what if I want to see what sessions are in session MGMP? I can put that in my filter. Now you can see that MGMP, those are the volumes that are in that session, and get a better filtering view on it. All right. So hopefully this is one step that helps you manage those dependencies and intersections. All right, the next one I want to talk about is a two-phase thing. It's what we're calling the storage topology overview and topology details. So first I'll talk about the overview. So the overview panel for topology is meant to show you a site-to-site based off of your actual storage systems, the replication, direction, and relationships. So this will, it's direction-based. So if you are going from site 2 to site 1, or from Chicago to Denver, you're going to see that in this panel, and you'll see the storage systems that are in the direction of those relationships. In addition, you'll see 4-site relationships in terms of the cascaded set of relationships. So you'll be able to 3 and 4 site. So either MGM or the actual 4-site sessions, you'll be able to see the cascaded nature of the replication from the first site to the second site to the third site. So let's go see that in action. So now I'm going to storage. I'm going to see topology overview, and you'll see here I am. Now you'll see most of my boxes. I use a single box, so my environment's kind of small. So I'm just replicating to the same box. However, in your environment, these are going to be different. This, site 1 you might label as Los Angeles. Site 2 may be Phoenix. Site 3 may be Chicago. So you're going to see from this site, this box is replicating. You'll see the arrow to the direction to this box. There'll be times, and if you reverse the direction of that particular session, you'll see site 2 end up in the first column like it is here, and site 1 in the second column. So this particular case here, this session, his production is running at site 2, and he's copying back to site 1. So if you have an environment where you're going both directions at the same time, you'll see both boxes in the column, but you'll be able to drill down, which I'll show you in a minute, to see the details. You'll notice that we're not saying the site is like H1 or H2 here, and the reason is because of that direction. We can change directions. So the main header is just saying site location, and it'll be site 1, site 2, site 3, or whatever you label the site on your particular storage system. These columns here where they have the multiple sites, these are cascaded. So you can see if site 1 goes to site 3 to site 4. So this is a multi-target MMGM type session. And we also see it for the A9000 sessions here. You can see site 1, site 2 to site 3. This is a multi-target A9000 session that has cascaded replication as well. So what can we do here? So now brings us to the next one. So I'll click here. So now we can drill down and actually see the details, and that's what we call the storage topology details panel. The storage topology details panel will give you the actual, small scale stuff. So, on a DS8000 be the LSS pairing level. So it'd be a particular source and a particular target, and all the relationships made up from there. What kind of things can you see from this? You can see, what sessions might have the same pairs on the same LSS. So you might have, sessions sharing the same LSS, as we talked about before. You can see, that global mirror consistency group when we're sharing those global mirrors. And then you may be able to debug other situations where maybe you have too many LSSs replicating to a target LSS. So you could set it up so that there's 10 source LSSs all pointing in the same target LSS, and that could cause problems if you do a failover, because there's a limit on the number of paths that can be replicated back to the original site. So if you failed over to that target LSS, you'd have issues, and this could show you that, hey, I have things configured incorrectly. It's going to cause me problems down the line. So how can we get there? So there's two ways. Here in the drop down, you can go straight to the topology details, or from here, I might say, oh, I want to see between these, and the arrow between them is actually a link. So what it's going to happen is if I click that, it's going to pre-filter the source site to site 1 and the target site to site 2. So now I see all the site 1 to site 2 relationships. And you can see if it's for LSS to LSS, he's the source, he's the target. And again, it's direction based, so if I wanted to change the site 2, I could and make that site 1. Or I could even see all the targets that this particular site's pointing to. So that from this source, it's going to all these different targets. Now, if I want to filter down more, I have the filter box, so I can do that as well. I could say, oh, I want to see everything on GXZ91. Oh, well, maybe I want to filter down more. I want to see everything on LSS Charlie 0. So you can see that, or you can even filter down on the actual session level too. So you can see for this, between these sites, what is my sessions. So we're hoping that these two panels, we may improve on them in the future, but they're at least a start to how customers can help view their dependencies and their intersections a little bit better. All right, our next feature is where we allow recover on the latest safeguarded copy backup. So what is this? Well, in the hardware doesn't allow you to recover the latest backup because it has to close that backup before it allows it to be recovered from. And so what CSM did in the past was we marked that backup as not recoverable. Had a little warning message that indicated that. It wasn't an error, but it was a warning message, and it said not recoverable. And when you brought up the recover dialog, it wouldn't let you choose that particular backup. What you had to do was then manually go and issue a backup, and then that backup would go into a recoverable state, and you'd be able to recover from it. So in 6.2.8, we're changing a little bit. Some customers always got concerned when they saw it wasn't, marked recoverable. So what we're going to do is by default, it will be marked recoverable now. So you will see that difference if you're running safeguarded copy now. You will no longer see that warning message for the latest backup that's been created. It will show green and recoverable. Now, the difference is when you go into the recover dialog, what you're going to see is the warning message change and indicate that if you do recover, well, two things. One, we have a new column that says additional backup required. So the latest backup is going to be marked as yes for that. So you'll have to see have to know that the latest backup will require a new backup. And then the warning message is going to tell you that as well, is that if you recover this, be aware that a new backup will be created automatically. So CSM will automate the new backup creation followed by recovering that backup to the recovery volumes. Now, why is this? Do we make a big deal of that? It's because a new backup, when you do the recovery, will take up additional backup capacity, and so you need to be aware that if you do not allocate enough backup capacity to cover recovering your latest backup, what will happen is the oldest backup may roll off the hardware in order to make space for that new backup. And if that oldest that backup rolls off, it could lead you to miss some of your service level agreements, etc. So we want you to be aware that either one, make sure you allocate enough backup capacity to cover this, or two, just be aware that this condition will occur at the time that you're recovering that backup. All right, so some other safeguarded copy session improvements. This is the list. We've added an expire backup on auto roll option. So this one's a little confusing. Prior to 627, when the hardware auto rolled the last backup in order to make space for a new backup, CSM would just mark the backup as invalid, and then it would show which volumes hit the auto rolled and which volumes didn't. In 627, we were asked to change it so that it would roll and automatically expire the backup across all the volumes. And the reason we asked this is because it would help free up space a lot quicker. Because if you're in this condition where the hardware is auto rolling backups already, then there may be a problem there where either you didn't plan for enough backup capacity, or a wider problem where you're actually running out of that back-end space and could affect your systems in general. So by doing it automatically, we freed up all the space across all the volumes, which helped free things up faster. Well, there was concern about this because some of those volumes, even though some volumes rolled, some of the volumes could still be recovered. So what we did is we went ahead in 628 and undid that. So now in 628, we will not, by default, expire the backup across all the volumes if one or more volumes rolled it internally. However, we do have an option on the CSM GUI. So in the actual options, you can check on the expire backup on auto roll option, and it will then free up that space across all the volumes in the event that the hardware auto rolls it. All right, the second one is support for persistent recovery. So the hardware has added a new ability to, on the recovery relationship for safeguarded copy, mark it persistent. So what this does is even if the background copy has completed for that recovery relationship, the relationship will remain on the hardware. So this is on our options tab for H1R1. You can now check that, and if you do want it to persist, you can mark that, and the recovery will keep it persistent. Now, just note that we will show the option in CSM, even if the DS8000 level you have doesn't support it yet. If you really want persistence, you'll need to be upgraded to the proper level of DS8000 microcode. All right, next one is some CSM performance enhancements with safeguarded copy. In the previous release, we had we had default wait time. So we will wait a default amount of time at the start of the backup in order to ensure that some internal cache scans are completed to allow the backup to complete quickly. Well, in 628, we have changed it so that we're basing it now on some queries to wait for those scans to complete. This should hopefully speed up the majority of customer environments where the scans do not take that long, and so you can see the backup process a lot faster and go from the actual issuing the backup to the backup complete a lot quicker. Fourth bullet there is we have a new alerts. So SNMP email alerts were created in 628. One was to alert you when we detect that the hardware has auto rolled a backup. So we wanted to make sure you were aware that, hey, something didn't go as planned. Maybe you didn't specify enough backup capacity, etc. We want you to know that that happened, so we will throw an event there. And then if a recovery relationship prevents the retention from causing us the retention from expiring the last backup, we'll let you know that as well. So what does that mean? It is possible for you to recover the oldest backup. And if you've recovered the oldest backup and the background copy has not completed, CSM cannot expire that backup because you're still using it essentially, right? You're using it on those recovery volumes. So when retention kicks in and says, oh, that backup's old, that's past my retention period, I need to get rid of it, well, we can't get rid of it. So we wanted to make sure that you as a customer were warned of this case so that you know that, hey, something's preventing your actual retention from, the built-in retention from cleaning things up, which is going to, affect things going forward. Your next backup's going to cause auto rolls, etc. So we'll throw an event now, and you'll be able to see that. And then the last one is just a kind of a note in general to not necessarily change, but just a statement of how, the direction we are. And CSM will default to protecting the backups and the recovery relationships. So what that means is we'll try to preserve what we can. The hardware may roll some backups, but we will allow you to recover from the backups that remain. You'll have to do some steps to do it because the backup in general will be marked as not recoverable. But we will dock those steps in our user center, user's guide, so that you can follow them and try to recover any backups that remain. And recovery relationship is kind of the same. We won't delete the recovery relationship just in order to allow retention to run. We assume that you were using that recovery relationship still, and so we will protect that. Now, if either of those defaults you wish to change those, you can contact support, and there are some properties that will allow you to reverse both of those so that we will both roll, which we already have the expire backup on auto roll, but allow you to delete the recovery relationships, etc. All right, some additional features. So this one is allows CSV export on a given CSM GUI tables. So this was like a quick little neat feature that we added in. We noticed that, especially with the new volumes panel where you're seeing the sessions and stuff, you might want to export that to a CSV file for later keeping and saving, etc. And so from the table itself, there is a little button, and I'll show you live here. So there's a little download icon right there. And now no matter whatever based off of what I filtered, etc., if I click on that, it's going to export that data to a CSV file so that you can save it off. We've done this across the storage volumes, topology overview, and topology details tables. So all these tables will have this little icon and allow you to export it to a CSV. It just looks like this little example down below, allowing you to, again, save it off for history purposes. All right, another request that came in was in a previous release, we added on an import CSV -action remove. So allowed you to remove copy sets via CSV file from our CLI. But we didn't have on the import CSV the force nor the keep on hardware options. So we've added those in. So now you can issue the -action remove on the import CSV command. And specify force, which basically tells the session, no matter what happens on the hardware, just remove it from the session. Or the keep on hardware, which says remove it from the session, but don't touch the hardware. So we keep the base relationships on the hardware, but let the session remove the brains of it. So now that you should be able to automate your removal as you would if you actually issued the remove copy set command. All right, and the last one here I want to talk about is kind of a log packaging set of improvements. this will help support as well as possibly yourself. The property files will now be included in the log package. So previously we didn't pick up the property files. However, now with more and more properties being documented and things being settable, we've included that in the log package so that support, if you ask, can look at and see what has been set to know exactly how the server should be behaving and how the session should be behaving. In addition, you might be able to create a log package and save off those property files just in case something happens or you need to restore a new CSM server, etc. And then the next one is we actually added a new volume relationship summary file. What does this do? Well, it gives you a whole mess of information, both for support purposes and possibly even audit purposes. So, I mean, it tells you the total number of volumes CSM is knowledgeable of, so how many we discovered, how many of those volumes are in sessions. So you could be able to, allows you to calculate the percentage of volumes across all the storage systems connected to CSM, and then other details like how many of those volumes are source volumes, how many are target volumes, how many are point-in-time sources, point-in-time targets, etc. So audit-wise, it could help you determine how many volumes or how many terabytes or even are associated to source volumes across the CSM server. And there's an additional property at the bottom there. If you specify the volume rel.details, it's not there it's not true by default. If you add that though, it's going to spit out all the volumes and all the information for those volumes as well, to show you what session and where they're at. I don't recommend setting that by default unless you're asked by support or you actually need to see it. Then take a log package and then set it back to false, because it's a whole lot of information. It's just going to take longer for the log package to create, but it is there in case you need it. All right, with that, that is our CSM 628 release. Hopefully there's stuff there that you've been looking for. I know there were a lot of RFEs with a lot of votes, so hopefully we're hitting the mark there. We look at RFEs constantly, and we'll look at the number of votes. And so these were a lot of the top priority RFEs that came across the CSM. So with that, that's the end of the video, and hope you enjoy the 628 release.